After going 13-4 and being involved in some of the craziest games of the 2022 NFL season, the Minnesota Vikings are having a true rollercoaster year. They lost each of the first 3 weeks, then after finally getting a win, they looked like they were done again when All-Pro receiver Justin Jefferson went on injured reserve following a 1-4 start. All of a sudden they tied up the record, but then quarterback Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles, and once again it felt like the season might be over. However, for a swap of 6th versus 7th round picks, they acquired journeyman QB Joshua Dobbs from the Cardinals at the deadline, and all he's done is come in and lead this team to 2 spectacular wins to get them to 6-4 now, right in the thick of things in a murky NFC, whilst defensive coordinator Brian Flores is starting to turn around the unit on the other side of the ball. How have they done this? Is it sustainable? What's the ceiling for this team? I want to dive into all of those things right now. For the purposes of this video, I'll be focusing on this iteration of the Vikings, with Dobbs coming in at quarterback 2 weeks ago, and that's where we'll actually start the conversation. In his first 2 games with Minnesota, Josh Dobbs has earned 0.1 flat expected points added per dropback when jumping in following the Vikings' first 2 drives against the Falcons, and then 0.305 EP per play this past Sunday in his first official start against what had been one of the top defenses in the league with the Saints. For some context, that latter number is right on par with what Patrick Mahomes did over the course of his MVP season last year, and his average through 2 games ranks 4th among the 23 quarterbacks who have played both weeks. The Vikings still haven't found a consistent run game, averaging just 3.7 yards per attempt, but we did see some juice from that part of the offense once he had opened up the field a little bit. Kevin O'Connell has done some interesting stuff in terms of varying personnel usage, challenging defensive rules and coverage, and then Dobbs has sprinkled his magic on top of the operation. Let's get to the film. Horrible start for Dobbs here, taking a safety and then getting strip sacked on the first 2 drives with the purple and gold. The defense holds and they're only down 11-3 with about 5 minutes left before halftime though, as we get to the 3rd and 8. Trips to the left, the ex-Jordan Addison at the bottom is in his reduced split. He will break inside with all stop routes around the sticks otherwise. The Falcons bring sort of a simulated pressure here, as you have Calais Campbell peeling off the edge and number 53 Nate Landman as a quasi-spy or the late add-on rusher, whilst they drop into cover 3 hole, so basically bracketing Jordan Addison at the bottom. While the matchup, if you will, that you want to attack here would be KJ Osborne curling up over the middle here against the defensive lineman. Yet as we watch this run, if the ball is placed inside to where the receiver is turned, the 6'8 Campbell at least gets those long arms on the ball. So instead Dobbs leads number 17 away from the hook dropper. That guy does a great job of holding on to the catch as he's getting crunched, and they get the drive going. Shortly after, they face a 3rd and 11. Here they have a smash concept to the field. You've got the steep in-cut coming from the backside, with somebody binding the underneath coverage, and the back flaring out into the flats. The Falcons end up bringing 4, with number 53 once again dropping out here, and they play cover 6 or cover 8 depending on the terminology you use, where it's cover 2 to the field and then quarters into the boundary. And to me what this looks like is a defense that doesn't believe the quarterback on the other side has the arm or the confidence to attack this honey hole window from the opposite hash. But Dobbs sees the corner stay flat, the safety not closed down, and he puts it to the sideline and not too far up the field for another huge conversion by Addison this time. And one more 3rd down from this drive, 10 yards to go, and this is what Dobbs has done all season long pretty much. He's arguably been the most effective scrambler in the NFL, averaging a league high 11.3 yards per, and according to Next Gen Stats, he's gained 130 rushing yards over expected on those scrambles, more than twice as much as the next closest guy in Patrick Mahomes. Not much of a need to talk about the pass concept here, because he doesn't have any time to read this out anyway. The Falcons bring 6 and have a defensive tackle peel off to become a spy here. The nickel comes free, but Dobbs is able to shake him off, and then you'll see a great block here by Cam Akers on this peeling defensive tackle. Dobbs gets down the sideline and leaps forward to set up a 1st and goal from the 2-yard line, which he hits his back off a little frontside bootleg for a touchdown on a couple of plays later. Coming out of the locker room, Dobbs gets his arm hit and the ball lands right in the belly of a defensive tackle on the first 3rd down, allowing Atlanta to extend the lead to 14-10 on a field goal. and while the Vikes answer with a field goal drive of their own, they find themselves down 21-13 with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. On the fringe of field goal range, it's 3rd and 8. Call it the levels or Mills concept from the trip side here, and an out to 6 by the signal receiver, but the Falcons will drop 8 and are all over this anyway. And that's where the mobility and ability to extend from Dobbs shows up again. He climbs as the edge rusher, gets pushed by, then gets wide, and finds his tight end TJ Hawkinson, who actually drifts a little bit deeper here towards the first down marker. But because Dobbs stays ready to hit number 4, who converts this up the field, they're able to hook up from this conversion and keep the drive going. And after one more first down, they try to hit the shot play, faking a slip screen to Jordan Addison, and then trying to hit Hawkinson on his rail route behind it. But Dobbs doesn't like it because the corner doesn't bite up quite enough, and now check out the elusiveness by the quarterback. He gets out of this, pump fake to freeze the linebacker just enough for himself to beat that guy to the outside, tightropes the sideline, and then slides inside of this defender late to finish off the drive with an 18-yard touchdown. The Vikes would hit another field goal off a Falcons interception, but after a big touchdown drive by the home team, Dobbs and company find themselves down 28-24 just before the 2-minute warning. And the man on his first day on the new job makes 2 incredible plays on this drive. This is on the 1st and 10, Vikings come out in a 2x2 set, and just run 4 verts here with the running back on what looks like a little option route against the linebacker. Falcons counter with a 4-man rush, and play straight up cover 2 sink, or maybe it's actually cover 6 this time where they've got quarters towards the field. Meaning as long as there's nobody breaking off their route up to a certain depth, those corners should continue to fall back either way. And this should really not be here. But what Dobbs does here is hitch up, and because this seems late to throw down the sideline, number 1 Jeff Okudah at corner cheats up just for a split second, wanting to come up against a potential completion underneath here, which opens up just enough of a window to drill this ball to the sideline to Addison, who makes a tremendous toe tap grab to get them into opposing territory. Just watch it from the end zone angle here, hitch up, reset, fire, Addison leaps and brings this in. Absolutely beautiful. Dobbs actually should have had another sweet hookup with TJ Hawkinson on a corner route, but it's dropped and they find themselves with a 4th and 7 from the opposing 34. They've got this dirty bunch to the right, and this becomes almost like the Minneapolis Miracle play where Stephon Diggs got that game-winning touchdown against the Saints from the divisional round several years ago by now, with all 3 receivers over there breaking towards the sideline at different depths. The only route even possibly on the table is this deep in-breaking route from the backside, but really Atlanta is all over this in what looks like cover 8 again, and Dobbs wouldn't have time anyway, as the Falcons only bring 4, but have a 3-man game on the quarterback's right side. I'll let this run here for now, so we can really enjoy this from a better view in a second here, being able to get away from the rush and get this huge conversion to keep the game alive. Because what happens is Bud Dupree gets a nice rush off the edge on this dip and rip move here, a little delayed, but Dobbs steps out of his grasp and is able to shoot for this lane for the biggest play of the game. And you'll see at the tail end here, he actually knows it with the little microphone drop, gotta love it. And for good measure, here's the touchdown that actually won the game, as they motion into 2x2. And I won't break this down too much, because this is very similar to how we actually started this breakdown, as the Falcons drop into this too high look, and Dobbs leads number 4 Brandon Powell in this case, away from the hook dropper yet again, on a slot curl route, with great zip on the ball, to put Minnesota up by 3 with just 22 seconds left. Overall, Dobbs was late on a couple of occasions because he only just got there 5 days earlier and had never seen the picture unfold or actually been able to anticipate what it would look like as the receivers go through all the concepts, but for the most part the ball was on the money and he made key plays to get them over the finish line. Let's move on to week 10 versus the Saints. And right away, this felt a little bit different because Dobbs seemed more plugged into the offense, and you saw him work through progressions, getting from one side to the other, and find the right answers. This comes after a holding call on a 2nd and 14. Vikings come out in a 2x2, with the outside receiver on the backside in a reduced split. And we've seen this concept already. Smash to the field, and is wrapped the other way, where we've got the tight end curling up after chipping the defensive end and his deep inbreaker behind it, along with the back flaring out into the flats yet again. The Saints are ready for that throw on the corner route though, with the corner back getting enough depth as they drop into Tampa 2. The nickel widens that way to take away this quick in route, so Dobbs has to get to the other side of the field, and this is where we'll see number 20, Pete Werner, gain some depth here to stay underneath this deep in-breaking route. Dobbs takes what the defense is giving him with the tight end here, and he powers forward to make this a 3rd and 4. They end up setting for a field goal here, but this was the first sign of the quarterback who doesn't just throw to who should be open on paper, but is able to make full field reads and find positive plays to set them up for manageable 3rd downs. As big a day as Hawkinson had against New Orleans, he actually drops a nice teardrop ball in the wheel route to force a punt on the next possession, before he put together a touchdown drive when he got the ball back here, and Dobbs ends up going back to his tight end on a big 3rd and 5. Vikings move the RB back in for protection purposes to give them the action to reduce split with a bunch the other way, and they get number 3 on a quick out motion to give him a running start on a high 7 route with this wrap element inside of it yet again. This time New Orleans is all over it, back in Tampa 2, so I'm not going to draw it up again. But because the concept is to the field this time, these 2 linebackers here will do a much better job of matching the 2 routes on the inside, and Dobbs is forced to create. He ends up slipping out of the grasp of a potential sack here, and stumbles as he is almost getting tripped up. And as this linebacker starts coming up here, he can just flip it over the top with his tight end coming free towards the sideline. Hawkinson fights forward and sets up a 1st and goal, which they'd cash in on with a wildcat touchdown by Ty Chandler. I'm not going to draw up anything for this next series, just a little showcase of how you can make use of his mobility and throwing skills on the move. First on his little boot action, into what basically turns into a flood concept, with a couple of guys working deep across the field. Conflict defender has to commit, Dobbs hits Addison right behind him on the over route for a chunk play. They get into another condensed set from 12 personnel, play action to hit Hawkinson on another deep crosser to defeat this single high look. You love to see the feel by Dobbs here to slide away from the pressure point in order to buy himself just enough time to deliver this touch throw right on the money yet again for another big play. And then to finish off the drive on 3rd and 6, this is just tremendous presence for bodies around him, nobody really open, so he hitches up, feeling pressure off the right edge, pirouettes back to the left with the rusher having circle around against him, and then beats another defender with a little shake towards the front pylon. Watch it one more time from the end zone angle. The amount of time it usually takes to get in sync with your line and understand how rush angles alter, then having eyes in the back of your head seemingly as he feels this defender coming in on him, spin to the outside, then stay in a throw ready posture to keep the defender frozen, burst to beat him to the pylon. Just awesome stuff. And they get the ball back one more time before the break. They chip away with some short completions to get down to the New Orleans 28, and that's where Dobbs delivers this absolute dime. 2x2, backstays in protection. We've got an out and up at the bottom. Number 4 Brandon Powell works out into the flats after helping with a chip on the edge. And then like a levels concept the other way with a quick in route. And then this corner post or just really well run post route by Hawkinson here, where he bends to the outside in order to open up more space for himself as he breaks towards the post. Being isolated with the safety here, while we've got Demario Davis bailing out into Tampa 2 yet again. He tries to fly underneath this, but Hawkinson is a little too deep and does a great job, like I said, of setting this up. Dobbs perfectly lofts it over the linebacker's head and to where the safety can get to it. Touchdown with 16 seconds left, and the Vikes go into the locker room up 24-3. Minnesota adds another field goal to start the second half, but as Jameis Winston, now in a quarterback for the Saints, is trying to get them back in the game in place of Derek Carr, they're also just trying to burn clock and could really use a first down here. With about 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter, to get to 3rd and 10, come out in the 3-by-1, and what they'll do here is just run off on the outside with stop routes at the sticks by the 2 inside receivers. But one detail I really like here is switching Brandon Powell and TJ Hawkinson in terms of where they would usually line up, because now with the Saints having the mic once again, And this is almost funny because Demario Davis is an all-pro player, but kind of the player that got isolated here a lot of times. As he has to work back this way, once again being in Tampa 2, he has to respect the speed of the wide receiver, while Dobbs perfectly anticipates where his men will break. Ball is right in the money, low and stopping his receiver in that window for a big first down. And if not for a weird holding call wiping off another touchdown run by Ty Chandler, the following third down, this game is already over. Dobbs would get sacked instead on 3rd and 11 on a well-designed Saints blitz, and then he didn't drop back again, but he had done enough damage at this point to set up a Vikings W. He'll continue to immerse himself further into this offensive system, and Kevin O'Connell will enhance his strengths, while the playmaking ability to go beyond the X's and O's is clearly there to challenge defenses in a variety of ways. That brings up the Vikings defense now. We've seen a major philosophical shift from Minnesota on the defensive side of the ball, away from Vic Fangio disciple Ed Donatel, who got lit up by the better quarterbacks around the league last year because his coverages were so predictable, they never really challenged receivers, and had an inherent disadvantage in the run game because rather than Fangio actually changing up looks post-snap, you knew what they were getting to all along. With Brian Flores not taking over defensive coordinator duties, there's a clear plan in place once again, but not only is there a lot more variety once they get into designated passing situations, but the players are so much more well taught and communicate at a much higher level to take care of their assignments. We see a lot of true 5-man fronts on early downs to stop the run and get them to 3rd and long, but they do it with only one linebacker on the field a lot of times, which would be labeled as penny fronts, and then the safeties are being asked to drop down and operate as edge setters most of the time. They're now up to number 7 in EPA per rush allowed, and then on 3rd downs, Flores is keeping opponents on the heels. I don't have the updated numbers at the point I'm collecting these notes, but until last week, the Vikings were bringing 6 or more rushers on about twice as high a rate as any other team in the NFL at about 30%. At the same time, he only rushes free about as much as anybody as well, in order to keep 8 bodies in coverage and flood the field. So with the way they can disguise what they're doing, it's really tough to find answers on the fly as they tap into those two extremes. Let's start by looking at some examples of the run defense. First play from scrimmage on the day, the Falcons motion into ace dual left, so 2 tight ends to that side from their perspective. The Vikings, however, don't allow any flow at all in this outside zone call, with veteran safety Harrison Smith down into the box, stonewalling the tight end at the point of attack for a quick stop to start things off as the rest of the defense pursues the ball. On this play, Atlanta comes out in an offset I formation where they'll motion the tight end across yet again to get a true strong side here with 2 bodies that way. Defense kind of shifts here late to change up the front as the Falcons run lead inside zone that way, but get stopped for just 2 yards, with Smith once again winning this battle at the point of attack, and you'll see number 58, the only linebacker on the field, Jordan Hicks, really attack the fullback in the hole here. Pursuit once again gets there, and they stop this before anything can really get going. This we'll watch from the all-22 angle. The Falcons on a 2x2 set with Bijan Robinson in motion, coming back inside eventually for a fly sweep. With the other running back, Tyler Algier, as a lead blocker, while number 81, Jono Smith, is asked to pin this point man, and they've got the place at tackle and guard pulling around, whilst the center has a really tough job here of reach blocking the free technique. But check out rookie linebacker Ivan Pace Jr., number 40, somebody I absolutely loved in the draft process, and people completely overthought him to where he ultimately went undrafted. He refuses to get walled off, fighting over the top of this traffic to get to the outside shoulder of the tackle and funnel the ball back inside. He holds onto Bijan's ankle and allows the rest of the pursuit to get there to hold this to less than a yard. Now in goal to go from the 1 yard line, the Falcons have 4 tight ends on the field, 2 to either side once they motion this fullback to the left edge, and they try to use this alignment of the Vikings against them to waste those 4 big bodies on the inside, with a jet sweep by Jono Smith to the left side. But this time, Daniil Hunter fights over the top of his block, Josh Metellus slips inside on the edge, Pace and Bynum pursue, and there's just nothing to be gained here, even as they're trying to push forward. Before on the next snap, they stuff Tyler Algier on a lead zone play, where they get Smith again in motion, now to lead the way, but number 95 Jacqueline Roy Disengages from his block to create some penetration. Bynum attacks downhill after trailing the motion, and everybody continues to work off contact to corral this for a 4-yard loss actually. Let's now get to some of the stuff they did in the pass game. We start with a 3rd and 14 situation. It's drop 8 versus a 7-man pass pro, and they still force a throwaway from Taylor Heinicke, as the Falcons just run a 3-man concept to the right side, where it's basically a deeper version of smash with a curl and the high 7 route, and then you've got Bijan working out into the flats off jab motion. The Vikings bail out nickelback Byron Murphy into this variation of a 3 deep coverage, and unless you just take the quick throw to Bijan here in the flats and ask him to do magic, which has been a plan too often on 3rd downs for Atlanta generally, but not trying to get too far off track here, there's really nothing to be had. Heinicke steps up, throws this one out of bounds, and they end up having to punt here. This I'm just quickly showing as a setup for later, as the Falcons run a swing screen to Bijan with a 4-on-3 numbers advantage out towards the field. But I think we've got a bad angle or just lack of understanding for his assignment here by Jonnu Smith, because Harrison Smith, you see here, he also takes a perfect angle to force Heinicke to throw this at the running back's feet. This is a 2nd and 7 on the next possession. Falcons motion the tight end across into what becomes an offside I formation towards the strong side now. They fake inside zone weak with a 2-man concept off play action with a skinny post and a deep over route coming the other way. Plus the back will ultimately slip out here into the flats of the run fake. The Vikings are in the base penny front with Jordan Hicks as the only linebacker on the field. Behind this 5-man surface, along with Harrison Smith, drop down, and Josh Metellus on the edge of the box. I'm not sure if you can actually call this a fire zone here, where typically you rush 5 and then you have 3 deep and 3 under. But with nobody sneaking across or actually releasing out into the flats to the offensive left side, I'm guessing Josh Metellus has the freedom to rush off the edge here. And once again, they've got this 3 deep look here. And that's a nice way of attacking that single high defense from Atlanta's perspective. But the 2 things I want you to pay attention to: Jordan Hicks here, he's gonna find this crosser and get enough depth to fly underneath it. And then we're gonna get a switch call between this deep safety and the corner in his deep third, where instead of bracketing the post routes, Cam Bynum is gonna drive down on this crosser, so the offense can't attack the space in front of those guys. You'll see what I mean here in a second. So crosser not really quite there yet, but here's the switch call being communicated, and check out Bynum driving down and getting both hands on the football for a near pick here. That is great communication and teaching of your DBs. One more play from this game here, tied at 21 now, with a little over 2 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. And we saw the Falcons try to set up that swing screen to Bijan earlier that I showed you. So this time they give a slightly different look, as Jonnu Smith now is the threat into the flats of an orbit motion. And they basically want to hit this deep in cut by Damiere Byrd on the outside, whilst Kyle Pitts is pushing at this deep middle safety, once again facing cover 3 here. But this is another great example of how well taught these Vikings defenders are. Check out number 7 Byron Murphy here. He reads this all along and is ready to undercut the receiver for a big interception, which sets up a field goal, and as we already discussed, they would win the game by exactly 3 points ultimately. Let's move on now to week 10 against the Saints. New Orleans was more efficient running the ball, but they only ran it 15 times for 65 yards on the day, because they quickly fell behind since they couldn't sustain any drives of their own. New Orleans down 1st down, trying to sort of spread out the penny front and put a lot of pressure on the rookie here, Ivan Pace, as the only linebacker on the field. They come out in a jumbo set from 13 personnel, so instead of covering up every gap, you'd have 3 bubbles here from an offensive perspective that you can attack. The D gap on the front side between those 2 tight ends, the place at B gap, and to some degree also this backside A gap. And with Minnesota having the D-line shifted away from the strength of the formation, running outside zone to the strong side should end up being a great call here. But check out Danielle Hunter pressing off this tight end on the front side and take away the corner. The interior flows along, forcing Alvin Kamara to try cutting this back, and now you've got rookie Ivan Pace running this down for just a 1-yard gain. Here's another snap and run defense, where on paper the Saints should definitely have success. They come out in sort of an ace duo set, with a tight end to the left, and then his flex player Lynn Bowden behind him in sort of a H-back alignment. They bring the offset Z receiver across on a jet motion. and run this insert lead play, so to speak. From a blocking perspective, almost like duo, but you've got this lead block as well on number 40 that plays at backer, which means against just 3 down linemen and 3 more bodies floating around the second level, it's part of kind of this amoeba front almost. They are short by 2 bodies in the box, depending on if this add-on safety gets involved in the run fit. But you see number 90, Jonathan Bullard, do a great job of holding his ground against this double team. Pace hits the lead blocker's inside shoulder as they're trying to create a new gap. The guys on the outside maintain leverage, and even though Kamara pushes ahead for 3 yards here, this is an outstanding job of neutralizing an advantage as you count heads here. 2nd and 7 quickly turns into 3rd and 5, and that's where the Vikings won all day long. And here's a sequence of back-to-back snaps for good measure. I'll show this from the all-22 angle, because only that illustrates the absurdity of the disadvantage that Minnesota should be in, and also because it shows how key the DBs are at evolving themselves in the run fit. It's 2nd and 3, another jumbo package, 2 tight ends to the bottom, and they motion the sole receiver Bowden in for another insert block. The Vikings shift the place at D-tackle inside. So now you've got him at 3 technique on the outside shoulder of the guard. Harrison Phillips is head up on the center, and you've got another D lineman head up on the tackle. But you can see the strong side C and D gap are completely uncovered, and Bowden creates that extra gap Bowden actually creates an extra gap when he works up through the space, meaning your big nickel, cornerback, and safety have to offset that advantage for the offense. Those guys proactively attack those blockers, and are somehow able to stuff this for just a 2-yard gain before they get the offense off the field on 3rd and 1. Where the Saints basically show the same setup, but try to hit this inside with an option to cut it back here. Yet Harrison Phillips on the nose does a great job after attacking across the center's face to fall back to the backside A-gap. Jordan Hicks stays disciplined to fill and kill the drive here. Just stick him in the hole and get the Saints off the field yet again. Back to the pass game now. 3rd and 5 here, right around midfield on the Lions' first drive of the day. 3rd and 5 here, right around midfield on the Lions' first drive of the day. Saints come out in the 3-by-1 set, back flank towards the short side of the field, and they're basically just clearing out space for speedster Rashid Shaheed on a drag route with a fade and 2 deep in-breaking routes on the other side to draw away the coverage. Minnesota could rush up to 6 guys here, but they end up shifting this front late, bringing down Ivan Pace to the edge, whilst dropping out DJ Warnham into the hook the other way, and getting Josh Metellus in a 1-on-1 with the back here, which he exposes to go right through him. And this is all about timing, because just being in cover 1 with man across the board, and then you've got the deep safety in the middle here, it puts a lot of pressure on your boundary corner to stick with Shaheed here all the way across the field. But because the rush affects Derek Carr here, to get it out early, and Shaheed hasn't quite cleared this dropping end, this pretty simple throw is a little off, and the Vikings get off the field. When New Orleans gets to the next 3rd down in opposing territory, this time needing 20 yards, the Vikings take a very different approach. The Saints just run fades on the outside and stop routes on the inside, with the back on a little hook after chipping the left edge, just trying to get some of the yardage back. After mudding up the picture here a little bit, Minnesota counters by only bringing 3, and running a variation of Tampa 2 behind it, where the field side safety comes down as a quasi-Tampa dropper, the nickel bails out into the deep half, and the corners sink in 3/4 turns with the eyes inside, where the linebackers are widening out, just enough to not make Carr comfortable with at least getting half the yardage back. So as you'll see, those swirl or curl routes are not really there, and Carr checks it down to his back. Pace makes an outstanding open field tackle for just a 3-yard gain. And some people may say, what's special about that? Nothing really, but they've protected against the big play, and also forced a minimal yardage here to still not make this a chip shot field goal from 48 yards away. Next series, following a DJ Warnham sack, it's 3rd and 11, Saints come out in empty with a couple of guys in wing alignments, chipping the right edge and keeping the other man in for a 6-man pass pro. And from an offensive design perspective, this is pretty underwhelming, I would say, as they'll just be running 3 verts here, with Chris Olave going down the pole as the only legitimate option here, along with a little pivot route by the tight end on a delayed release, way short of the marker. The Vikings counter by having 5 guys at the line, but only one of them is actually down in his stance, and generally everybody's a little bit off the ball, as they ultimately only bring 4, and you've got number 25 matching the tight end, releasing here late. I'd say the closest thing here to define this is a 1 double robber, as even though the corner on the top of the screen, he's going to play like a 3/4 turn as if he was playing cover 3. But this is basically man across the board. We've got 1 safety deep and 2 guys hanging over the middle here to negate any easy completions over the middle of the field and be able to come up against underneath completions as well. Carr doesn't like what he's seeing, and he ends up taking off, but gets tripped up from behind by Warnham, whilst you'd have Josh Metellus ready as well in the open field for a tackle. The Saints would make a comeback effort with Jameis Winston replacing the injured Derek Carr and just throwing up balls into the end zone because he simply doesn't give a damn at this point, and his receivers made a couple of awesome touchdown grabs. However, hear how the final 3 possessions ended. Due to Minnesota showing 7 bodies at the line of scrimmage, the Saints slide the whole line towards the right side, and you have the defensive end the other way unblocked, even though the Vikings only end up bringing 4 here, forcing Jameis to flip it to Kamara, sneak it out into the flats, and then you've got Josh Metellus just saying no as he widens and then attacks upfield to negate any yards after catch that would be able to convert this. Here the Vikings create a free rusher right up the middle, as Alvin Kamara isn't sure where his assignment is due to 7 potential bodies coming yet again. Jameis just throws this one up for Chris Olave down the boundary, because he expects this to be true man coverage and his receiver to convert this to a go ball, while rookie cornerback Mekhi Blackman tracks the ball and grabs it for a nice pick. And then Jameis throws up another one for Rashid Shaheed down the pole in his crowded space as they bail out the nickel once again into this Tampa 2 look, which Murphy ultimately comes down with the ball here. Plus then they also knock down one shot at a Hail Mary late. So a quarterback having to force the issue certainly helps, but the defense finishes the job here in very strong fashion. Brian Flores was all over New Orleans, fairly uninspired West Coast passing concepts. Their own offense put pressure on the Saints to catch up, and Jameis' play leveled out over the course of the day between the good and bad. But the ability to balance out negative looks in the run game from their perspective, how they keep offenses on the heels if they'll end up bringing 3 or 6 in designated passing situations, how well he communicates and operates due to the teachings of Flores. This unit has so much more bite to it than it did last year, even though the pieces individually still leave things to be desired. The Vikings are still far from a perfect team. We have yet to see them work in a viable run game and offense. Dobbs is probably due for some negative regression, and the defense is kind of all or nothing still, to where we saw early in the season opponents being able to punish their aggressiveness with big plays through the air eventually. That being said, I never expected them to rebound to 6-4. This past week we saw some glimpses of Ty Chandler adding juice on the ground, while Dobbs needs to be accounted for in a numbers game with his mobility. The defenses looked their best during Minnesota's 5-game win streak, forcing a combined 11 takeaways, and freaking Justin Jefferson may be back on Sunday night at Denver. I don't know if this team can actually challenge the top of the NFC when we get to January, but they'll make sure to be a pain in the butt every week, and you better not give them an opening. That's gonna do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you enjoyed the breakdown, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more if you haven't done so yet, while sharing with a friend is always appreciated to help grow the channel together. I'll be back next week with an article on my page, hellofootballtalk.com, and in the meantime you can check out all my other work there, while you can also follow me on social media. Links are down below in the video description as well, for all my betting picks and general thoughts on what's happening around football. So until then, see you later. Peace!